Hey guys, this is Nick. I am going to walk you through my inclement weather unit here. Um, I'm actually using Canvas. That's what we use in my school. So I thought it would be a perfect opportunity to do this assignment in Canvas and actually force myself to learn some of the things in here that honestly, up to this course, I was not too familiar with. A lot of what I use, along with most of other staff, is using it basically to post assignments, announcements, and submit papers and things like that. So, by actually setting up and forming these modules and full lessons, it was a good learning experience for that. So it was very helpful. I appreciated it. So, um, first part here, communication structures. We have a little bit of a different type of schedule. We have what we call a modified block schedule. So we have periods 1 through 4 on day one, and then periods 5 through 8 on day two. So we call it either a modified block or a collegiate model. So I had that in mind when creating this, as far as um, two of the days are a little bit heavier, and the third day is or one of the days is a little bit lighter as far as the amount of time it takes for these assignments and for these the daily requirements here. So because of that, I go with an asynchronous model to let them work on their own, depending which day it is when that snow day falls, how many of them are in a row. They can balance work accordingly here. So, um, and again, they can walk through each of these on their own time. The one thing that they'll have to pay attention to is the discussion boards, because there will be obviously discussions and commenting going back and forth. So they will have to return to that once, most of the rest of the class is commented and start adding feedback as well. As far as standards go, looking at the QM standards here for this, looking back when we did this assignment in the second module, and looking at another course to look, and now looking at my own, it actually was helpful with some of the things that I ended up changing along the way. I still have more changes to do, but I've changed it so many times since. So, as far as standard one, instructions make clear how to get started and where to find various course components. So if you're not familiar with Canvas, so if you would go to the home page, and I set this up as its own class, because I actually had some people in my building run through this and take a look at it for me. So I set this up, and I have admin rights to our Canvas page, so I could actually create my own right away. It was actually learning to do that was actually really easy, and then I just set myself up as a teacher, and then I at one point created a generic student, and then I actually invited people into my course. Um, so when you go to open up the course, you go to the modules, and you can see that I have my inclement weather unit here. The first part of this is I have a help forum here for students. If they have any questions, they can add that to the discussion board. I will be involved in that discussion board, and anybody else can answer the questions. I do have contact information, some tutorials to be able to use some of the resources that we use during these lessons. My overview basically is the instructions for the entire unit. My objectives overview, here's my day 1, 2, and 3 requirements, what they need to do, my resources, and discussion boards down at the bottom here. The one thing I do want to add, 1.2, a statement that introduces the student to the purpose and structure of the course. Or I'm sorry, 1.6, the instructor provides a self-introduction. I would like to add a video for the module overview, the video overview for that, and include that in it. That's something I did not do yet, but something I will add. And as far as the netiquette that would be required for this, we do already have that for our school, that we have digital citizenship classes that they take and have to pass, and they sign off on at the beginning of every single year, so they understand what our technology etiquette is for that. The learning objectives for the second standard are listed and tied to the lesson. Assessment and measurement, I have different assessments for each day. We'll go down and walk through each of these here. Those assessments are directly linked to the objectives when we go down them. Course content assignments and assessments are aligned with state standards. Learning objectives are appropriately designed for the level of the course. Specifically for this one here, this is a foundations course, so I have some lower level learners, some learners that actually require instructional support. It's kind of our version of special education since I'm in a private school. So I kept that in mind how I designed this and some of the requirements that I had. I didn't want to make it too tech heavy as far as having any kind of learning curve for them to learn how to use some of the Google tools. Most of them understand and use it on a regular basis, and there's a few of them that do struggle. So I wanted to design it to make sure that the tech part of it didn't hold them back from actually, fulfilling the objectives of the course. The materials that I used, I selected a variety of different readings. My OERs that I selected, some of them go to different sites that have games involved, that have simulations involved. One of my favorite ones was a Feed the Pig simulation that actually, when you go to it, it actually walks you through as you have different credit cards and interest rates and monthly payments and what that does. And then if you actually have multiple cards, how that looks as far as your payoff and when that payoff will exist. So those types of things, like I said, it was, I had a variety. I wanted to have a variety of different resources and activities that they were going to be involved in. Learner interaction was important because it's been very important in this course, which is why I wanted to add some of these discussions in. So I have discussions here as far as in my day two discussion. I have a discussion in day 2 and day 3. So in day 2 discussion, discuss how interest rates will affect you and the decisions you make in the next 10 years. Please comment on 2 of your classmates' posts. I designed my discussions where it made them think of how it actually affected themselves going forward. So I didn't want to have a discussion where they just had to look at the reading and answer some questions, but I wanted them to take a look at the readings and the activities and think about how this will affect them going forward in the future. So I would expect to have some good responses when I go through, and eventually I will use this unit. Eventually I'm looking forward to reading some of these responses. And then on my day 3, I have a final discussion as well. My final thoughts, I guess I can go down here. My final thoughts and conclusions. In the past 3 days, we have discussed the impact of credit cards, interest rates, and budgeting, how they can affect our financial security. Just in 2 to 3 paragraphs, explain how a budget works and how a budget can influence the use of the credit card. I'm hoping by this point they look at budgeting and credit cards and see how one can affect the other and throw the other out of balance. So it's kind of what I'm hoping for at the end here. So hopefully they'll bounce some ideas off of each other. They'll have to read and comment and discuss with each other's posts, obviously. It says learner support. The course identifies policies and services for all students. Like I said, I do have some students that are involved in instructional support. I do not have any issues as far as accessibility issues. I don't have any students that have visual or any kind of audible impairments that would require me to change anything. But that being said, I do want to add some more videos and explanations. I do want to make sure that all of my PDFs and all my content is accessible as well. So those are some of the things I'm actually going to have to add to going forward. So if anything, I'd say that's where I would, especially in this standard 8 is where I probably fall short a little bit here, that needs a little bit of help. Assessments, consider the methods of assessment you included in your unit. For my first assessment, what I actually had them do was I had them populate a Google Doc, because one of the main things where the initiatives that we have is actually becoming a Google school eventually, and we try to have them create and submit everything within Google. So this will link. Sorry, my connection must be slow here. So finally pulled up here. I actually created the doc for them, and I have a list of questions here. And what they actually are going to do, and I gave them a generic one, or they could get their own, but they're supposed to get a credit card offer and ask a bunch of these questions here as far as by reading the fine print. What's the APR, and what's the grace period? Is there an annual fee? Sometimes all these things aren't spelled out right in front of you. But I wanted to get them introduced to actually looking at some of that literature and being familiar with it, because it's definitely something that they'll see in the future. My day 2, I actually had them fill out a Google Sheet for day 2. What they did was that in that feed the pig exercise, that they were actually going to go in and plug in different credit card amounts and interest rates from the Google Sheet, and then after they were done, they're going to see what their payoff time is, and what they're actually going to pay in interest over the course of that loan, basically. And then the day 3, what they actually did was they had to create a budget. So in that create a budget, they're also going to use, I have it down here, a make a budget worksheet. See how long this takes to load here. Obviously my connection's slow, but they're actually going to have to fill it. They get introduced, they read some literature, get introduced to the different components of a budget, and they have to basically do a little research and figure out what some of those components will cost them depending upon where they'll live. So that's how they'll submit some of these assignments and some of these assessments for this part of the year. As far as student reactions go, so I had several students of mine navigate the course, and a couple teachers that I work with as well. It was great to actually have people on the other end of it work through it, because it actually helped me find a lot of mistakes. I had a couple links that were not live. When I look at things from the teacher end and click them, everything was okay. But apparently with some of the assignments, I did not have dates set. So even though I could click on it and look at the assignment, because there was no date or any due date, they were getting an error message when they clicked on it. So that was something to let me know, like, hey, I got to fix this. This is something that would need to be changed. A lot of the comments I got back, especially from staff, is like, hey, can you teach me how to do this? I love this. So, which was perfect, which is half of my job is tech integration. So I'm going to love to work with some of our staff to actually introduce them to creating some of their units, whether they're doing an online course or not. It's very helpful. Again, praise what went well with the unit. I think they like the various different assessments that I use. They like the flow of it and the practicality of it. What do I need to polish? Again, I think I need to add some video overviews in this and some video explanations of exactly, because this is a foundations course. I think those video instructions can be really important, and daily video instructions, not just an overview video instruction. So I'm gonna have to add a couple of them in there. And as far as what questions arose after the test run, I'd say the main question that arose was, and this is what I'll have to work on, is basically, where are we going to go from here? Like, this is a 3-day unit. Are we done? Like, do we ever get back to this? And this is something that I'll, have to look on building on going forward, because this is definitely a discussion I don't want to end after this unit. This is, this is information. This is a topic that I think that we could continue with, throughout the course, and actually, throughout high school in general. So, overall, again, this was a great idea. I think this unit taught me a lot. Creating my own, I have a lot of work to do and add to this, but overall, it was a great experience.